Game 13 of the World Chess Championship. After yesterday's debacle, how would Jan Nepomniachtchi react? Would he be able to gather his strength to push with the white pieces? And how would Ding play after levelling the scores? This was a fascinating game. Started very steadily, but, well, you know these players. The game spun rapidly out of control. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and do subscribe. Do yourself a favour, subscribe to the channel. Do me a favour too. I'm edging very close to 100k. Right, let's crack on with this game. Nepo with white. Ding plays solidly. No adventures with the French or anything else. We have a Spanish. Probably quite predictable. And so far it's the main line, but not rook e1. d3 from Nepo. So he's following in his own footsteps from previous games in this match. A solid start, and, well, he's been doing pretty well with this system. So everything very normal so far. Previously we've seen a3. It's very important to stop knight a5. That bishop would be eliminated, so a3 is possible. He goes for c3 as he's played previously. So that means the bishop can just drop back there if necessary, but also white wants to push forward sometimes with d4. And h3, so that's in preparation for d4. You don't want to allow bishop g4. Bishop b7, so the bishop develops. That's kind of preparation or prophylaxis in case white wants to play d4, because then the bishop will look good on b7. And in game 5 we saw a4, a standard Spanish move. But here it's something different. Bishop e3 from Nepo, and that's an unusual move. And I have to say, I don't like this move. It's normal in these kind of Spanish positions to leave the bishop on c1 until it's absolutely clear where that bishop belongs, whether it's on one of these squares, g5, or whether it simply remains on c1 for the foreseeable future. But committing the bishop to e3 at such an early stage looks odd to me. And I think it's notable that very few, or indeed no, players of note have played this previously. But okay, Nepo had some idea in mind. Ding played knight a5 to attack the bishop, which dropped back, and then c5. That's the point of playing the knight out to the side. The knight is not well placed on a5. However, it means that this pawn has advanced, so black has more influence over the centre. Knight d2, yep, that's where we like the knight. But normally we see rook e1 and knight f1 to g3, but that's going to take a little bit of time. Rook e8. Well, it's clear that white is almost ready to play d4, so rook e8 looks like a mysterious move because this file is closed. However, of course, once d4 comes, then the e file will open and there'll be pressure against e4. So rook e8 is an absolutely standard move in these Spanish positions. a4, also very normal. Could be that this file opens and sometimes the b5 pawn is a target. h6. Really, black wants to drop the bishop back to f8, but h6 is played because in that case white could consider the pin if bishop f8. So h6 is a careful move. Now Nepo went for d4 straight away. He could have exchanged on b5 first. Might have been a slight improvement because that pawn might become a target, but also becomes more drawish with every pawn exchange. But d4 opens things up. An exchange, another exchange, and knight takes d4. Now, you could say that white has gained a little space from that. You can see this pawn gives white a bit more space. But the problem from white's viewpoint is that this pawn can be targeted. You've also got to watch out for knight f5. So you know, this is a double-edged situation, and that pawn is also under fire. Knight c4 from Ding. This is an excellent move. That knight simply isn't doing anything on a5. It's best to play like this instead of bishop f8. You don't want this knight to be left behind. It's an excellent move because basically after the exchange, you can see that that knight was protecting e4, but now this pawn is under fire. And this is already a tricky position for white, actually. And here Nepo had a little bit of a think. Well, he had a think before exchanging on c4, actually. But it's tricky. What do you do about this pawn? If it's defended, then there's going to be more firepower here. And I think after yesterday's defeat, I think Nepo is lacking a bit of confidence because he just accepted that he had a worse position here. And he played f3, which is quite a contentious move, but it's accepting that white has a disadvantage. But I don't like this move, and I'll go into why in a second. I think it's better for white to offer a pawn like this. Knight f5, so the bishop drops back. So the bishop protects these pawns, that's nice and solid, and also opens up the e-file. So there's now 3 pieces attacking this. And then just rook e1. So you leave that pawn on f2, that's very important. So the king is nicely protected. Yes, black can take here, but after this exchange, let's say rook takes, queen f3. I think white has excellent compensation for the pawn because with the queen supporting the knight, there are always going to be interesting tactics. This rook can easily enter the fray on d1, and you can see white's pieces just exude harmony in this position. It's very nice. Not that the black is worse, but I think that's actually quite a safe way for white to play, knight f5. But as I said, I felt that Nepo had sort of talked himself into believing that he stood worse here, and he played f3, which is, to my eyes, quite a compromise. Because after bishop f8, you can see that there's latent pressure against that bishop. Black is gearing up to play d5. So the bishop dropped back out of trouble from d5, d5 anyway, and white has to exchange. And that exchange just liberates black's pieces. That knight could fly into one of these squares. That's dangerous. Look at these pawns creating weaknesses around the king. That's very unpleasant. In fact, this whole diagonal could be used by black. You know, this bishop could easily come here, perhaps with a queen. The rook can switch over. Perhaps the queen is going to come to g5. This is already quite a difficult position for white. Nepo played bishop e4. And I think he was preparing just to exchange off bishop for knight, which is a compromise. And here Ding had a big think with black. He realised that he stood better, but he was looking for a way that really gave him a definite advantage. At the moment he's not there yet, but his position is just very promising. And there's lots of potential moves. You could look at queen f6, queen g5. You could look at rook b8. What else is there? You could look at queen c7 and then move the rook to the middle. But to everyone's surprise, Ding played rook e5, which looks really strange. I mean, maybe the simplest move is just to play rook b8 here. So it means this knight is ready to move. And then after this exchange, the rook will actually get a bit of pressure on b2. It's a difficult position for white. And if white exchanges here, black has the 2 bishops. It's true this one is biting on f3, but actually after something like this, doesn't matter too much. The bishop is fine on c8. In fact, both bishops on their starting squares are fine. They'll fly into the game later. There's pressure on b2. Black is definitely better there. But rook e5, after a big think, came as quite a surprise. I mean, I think it's basically a very ambitious move. Ding is really striving to get the advantage here. But it looks a bit odd. Rook c1 played, attacking the pawn. Rook c8 defends the pawn. In fact, after queen d2, the engines believe that white is absolutely fine. But Nepo played knight e2. And here, Ding went queen e7. Queen e8's a better move, because it still allows that bishop to come into the game. And in quite a few variations, that is really significant. And that's a distinct improvement on the game. But after queen e7, the game is once again in balance, particularly after this move, queen d4, which Ding said he'd overlooked. But he went for it with f5. I mean, this is clearly his idea in playing rook e5. You know, he wanted to crack open the e-file. But in fact, white is fine after this move, bishop g3. Which means that black is going to have to give up material. Notice that that rook is defending the knight. And Ding quite quickly went for rook takes bishop. Pawn takes bishop looks like a better move. Because, for example, after this rook is taken, now black is the exchange down, but actually this is a very awkward move for white, and this is going to burn out into a draw like this, and knight d4 and opposite colour bishops, a few pawns on the board, should be a draw. Or bishop takes, and here again black has fantastic compensation after this move, and that bishop enters the game on c5. Watch out for that pin. And you can see there are lots of loose pieces here, even the rook opposite the bishop. White can bail out by just giving the exchange back, and it's about equal. But taking with the pawn is definitely the way to go. Instead, Ding played rook takes bishop, which basically forces an endgame. He must have just thought, well, he has enough compensation, and maybe he imagined this could even turn in black's favour. It's hard to say. I mean, maybe those variations with the other exchange sack were just too complicated. He wasn't sure what was going on. Whereas I suppose he has security in this endgame. It doesn't look that bad for black. With the two bishops, black certainly has decent compensation. He played knight b4 here. There's actually no need to move that. You could just play bishop e7 and get that bishop going on one of these diagonals. And with the two bishops and a pawn for the exchange, nice compensation for black. But knight b4, obviously the knight wants to come in here, but it does allow the rook into d7. So it's getting a little bit tricky. Check. Bishop c6. And now Nepo played the principal move, which is to exchange rooks. If you're the exchange ahead and you have two rooks against rook and minor piece, always try to exchange. That's just what you do. And then if that rook manages to get into the game, then it can just run wild. The problem is getting that rook into the game. So this is what happened. Bishop d5 protects the c-pawn. Nepo played knight c3 here. a5 looks like a better move, so that this bishop can come here. But still very hard for white to make progress. But knight c3 played, knight d3, hits the rook, hits the pawn. Bishop c6, obviously that bishop was under attack. King f7. And you can see that Ding's pieces are so well centralized. It's very hard for white to make any progress. Basically with rook e2, Nepo acquiesced to the draw. He could have tried knight e2. And this is still a little bit complicated, but after this, an exchange. It's really hard for white to make progress. You could try, but very hard to bring the king into the game. And the two bishops still look pretty good. But instead, I think discretion was the greater part of valor, and he played rook e2, targeting this pawn. And now, again, Ding just decided to cut to the draw. And after this, they repeated the position 3 times and looked into each other's eyes and agreed a draw before calling the arbiter over. There was just one try here. Instead of knight c1, Ding could have played king e6. It's a very interesting move, actually. So just bringing the king closer to the pawn. And after white takes this, king here, and if the rook falls back, then bishop d4, and you can take this one. But as Ding said afterwards, he thought that rook e8 should just be a draw, and here's why. Knight takes pawn, rook here check is an excellent move. Looks like this pawn is actually very dangerous, but for example, after king c6, bishop e5 just controls the c3 square, and actually white is going on the attack. And if king e4, rook check, and once again, if king d3, bishop e5, and a check, and then take here, and it's very difficult to advance this one, and you know this pawn is vulnerable. White is better there. So in fact, after knight b2, rook check, king e4, rook e8 check, king d5. In fact, the game will also end in a draw by repetition. But yeah, as I said, the game actually ended like this. Knight c1 and a draw there. It's incredible how these players seem to always create some kind of chaotic position. It's very difficult for them just to sort of keep things under control. It's fascinating to see that happen. So, scores even going into the 14th and final game. Friday's a rest day. So the players have time to gather their thoughts and think of what their strategy should be. If we look back to past World Championship matches, you might recall Topalov against Anand, where Topalov with white pressed too hard and Anand defeated him to win the title. Then again, we have Magnus Carlsen against Karyakin in 2016 and against Caruana in 2018. And Carlsen's strategy was just to play for a draw and head for those tie breaks. Even though he had white against Karyakin, and even though with black against Caruana he had some initiative, but he just had the mindset before the game, I'm playing for a draw, my best chance is to go into the rapid play tie break. So what will Ding do with white? Will he play it safe? Will he go for the tie break? Or will he try to press? We shall soon find out. See you on Saturday. Thanks for watching.